Hello students, this is Dr. D here today to talk to you about plagiarism. This is a brief lecture that should tell you what plagiarism is and how to avoid it. I hope following this recording you will know these things and be able to explain plagiarism to your classmates or to any other professionals you might encounter. First, let me say there is information about plagiarism and cheating in my syllabus. Basically, academic dishonesty is prohibited by the MSW Student Handbook, the University Code of Student Conduct, and additionally the NASW Code of Ethics for social workers. So you need to be aware that there is a consequence for you breaking the rules with plagiarism or with cheating, that you could get a 0 of the assignment or you could fail the course. Generally what happens when you do have an incident of plagiarism or cheating is we try to determine if this was intentional or accidental, and sometimes it goes one way or the other. So if it's accidental, sometimes we will only fail you for the assignment. However, if it is purposeful, you will be failed for the course if we can determine that that is what has happened. So to be more specific about what the WKU Student Handbook says on page 33, and there is a live link, by the way, to the WKU Student Handbook and the NASW Code of Ethics on my syllabus. Basically, the WKU Student Handbook says that students who commit any act of academic dishonesty may receive from the instructor a failing grade in that portion of the coursework, or a failing grade in the course without possibility of withdrawal. Also, a faculty member that has a student that has been academically dishonest may present the case to the Office of Judicial Affairs, which means you could get disciplinary sanctions. Now, if you don't agree that you did commit academic dishonesty, then you can seek relief for that from the student complaint procedures, and those are available in the WKU Student Handbook. Plagiarism itself is defined in the WKU Student Handbook as representing written work taken from another source as one's own. So it's very serious, and it's basically stealing from the person that had that idea and presented that information. If you lift content directly from a source without giving credit, that is a flagrant act of plagiarism. Now, the NASW Code of Ethics talks about the value of integrity, saying social workers should behave in a trustworthy manner. And so you have to act honestly and responsibly to promote ethical practice, which would include not cheating and not stealing. Those are important things. Specifically, the NASW Code of Ethics in the 4.04 guidelines says that social workers should not participate in, condone, or be associated with dishonesty, fraud, or deception. Further, it talks specifically about acknowledging credit, that you should not take responsibility and credit, including authorship credit, only for unless you have actually performed the work or contributed to it. So you need to make sure that you honestly acknowledge the work of and the contribution made from others, and that has to do with research as well as practice. The main thing to remember is plagiarism can get you kicked out of the MSW program and Western. At a minimum, you fail the course, and you could also be reported to the NASW for that and be kicked out of membership of that organization. Now, some people would say, well, I didn't mean to, I just made a mistake in an APA reference. If you fail to cite appropriately in APA, that is the same outcome as if you intentionally did it, which is the work is not then shared as someone else's, it is shared as your own. So ignorance of APA is not an excuse. If you're not sure in APA, hopefully by the end of this class, you'll have the skills you need to always use APA in an appropriate manner, but that is really no excuse. you should at least have some attempted citation there to show that you are not thinking up this information on your own, that it actually has come from some other source. There are a lot of actions that might be seen as plagiarism. And, you could think of plagiarism on a scale. You can see my arrow at the bottom from, again, deliberate plagiarism to possibly accidental plagiarism. So you need to be aware that there is a continuum here. Things like using the source too closely when you paraphrase. Choosing too many words in your paraphrase so that makes it instead more of a quote. And the general rule is don't use more than 3 words in a row in your paraphrase. So you can see how easy it would be. If you're going to use more than that, you need to quote. 3 or more words get a quotation marks and a page number. Building on someone's ideas without citing those ideas. So that's another action that might be seen as plagiarism. You need to make sure that if you are using someone else's ideas to build upon, you say this was their idea, and then in the part that's not their idea, you present it as your own. But the part that is their idea that you're building from, you stop that when their thought ends. Copying from another source without citing, that could happen on purpose or by accident. Maybe you just forgot to cite. I can tell you personally, for me as a professor, there's a huge difference between one missed citation and a paper with no citations in it. If the paper has no citations yet at the end there's a reference list with 10 sources, then it's obvious that they did not give credit where credit was due, because they have cited at the end the papers that were not cited anywhere in the text. So it's very important that you make sure that you attempt to cite, and always remember, in fact, what I say as a rule is do not put any information from another source in a paper without putting the source beside it, even if you know that later you're going to have to come back and redo that into an APA format. At least you have a trigger there for when you're proofreading that you know I need to cite this later. Now, if you hire someone to write your paper, if you buy, steal, or borrow a paper, that is deliberate plagiarism, and there's no way around that. You have taken someone else's ideas and presented them as your own. So you can see the continuum there. A way to think about plagiarism that might be helpful to you is to think to yourself, did I summarize? If I did summarize something, I need to quote it and put the reference. Did I paraphrase? Well, if you paraphrased, then yes, you need to cite where you got that information. Did I borrow? Did I copy? Did I use a structure of another paper or resource? Well, then you need to quote that resource. You need to make sure people know that you are using somebody else's ideas if you do any of these. These are some good questions to ask yourself. So I'm going to give you a little quiz here, and I'm going to present this. There's 3 examples here, and I want to present them, and I want you to pause the tape and think about it. Is it plagiarism or is it not? Is it plagiarism that you would copy a web page directly into your paper like this? Welcome to Western Kentucky University, home of the Hilltoppers. Our Hilltop campus is a place of beauty and friendliness. It embraces a proud heritage and a bold, ambitious future. Now take about 10 seconds. You can stop the video if you would like and determine, is this plagiarism or is this not? Why, yes. If you said yes, you are correct. Copying a web passage directly into your paper is plagiarism, unless you cite it. I've given you an example of how to cite a web page. It is below here, so you can stop and read that. Notice that when you're citing a web page, you have to put the name, the title of the web page. The title of this particular web page was About WKU. Put a comma and somehow denote where you found this information. This was in paragraph 1 on the About WKU web page. Now, in your reference list, you would also present the web address, but you don't put the web address here. So I hope you said yes. Let's move to example 2. Is it plagiarism to summarize a scholarly article's research findings in your paper? Think about it. I'll give you a second to pause and think about that. Is it plagiarism? I hope you said yes. Summarizing a scholarly article findings into your paper is plagiarizing. Now, if you need to summarize, that is fine. You need to cite it as follows. And I've given you an example here. I've summarized Waldegrave's article about families. This is from our family therapies class, actually. It's actually an article you would read. Example 3. Is this plagiarism? Using information from your textbook in your paper. Stop for a minute and think about it. Why, yes, it is plagiarism. Using information from your textbook in a paper is plagiarism unless you cite it. I'm going to cite, I cited here the APA, your textbook for this class is the APA manual that states the key element of this principle, which is referring to plagiarism here, is that authors do not present the work of another as if it were their own work. This can extend to ideas as well as written words, and that's on page 16 of your APA manual textbook. And again, in the reference list, you would cite the full book so that if somebody wanted to go look it up, they would know where to find the book and what page this was on. And you notice I have quotation marks. So yes, that is indeed plagiarism. Are you nervous? Does thinking about this plagiarism issue scare you? Have you been making some errors in your citations and in your practice there? It's okay if you have. But I'm here to tell you that I know a lot of students come into our MSW program and professors have not been diligent in paying attention to plagiarism. I am diligent about it. Sometimes I like to read the articles that you cite in your paper. You might have an article in there and I think, that is so cool. I want to learn more about that new style of therapy, or something about this evidence-based practice, or something about this policy. So I would try to look it up many times and, to learn more about it. I'm not even checking up on you. I'm a curious person trying to get more information. And I will find plagiarism that way sometimes, accidentally. I'm not even meaning to. It's just that I'm interested in your work. I'm interested in the same topics you are because I'm a social worker. But I don't want you to be nervous. What I want you to do is make sure that you are citing things as appropriate. There's no need to be concerned that you're going to do it wrong. If you have your citation cited improperly, I will tell you. If you cite too much, I will let you know. I know some students go overboard and want to cite every single sentence, and you don't need to do that. You need to cite at the once a paragraph if that information is all from the same source. Now, if you have 2 or 3 different articles that you're citing from in the same paragraph, that would be 2 or 3 different citations. And I do need to be able to tell very clearly which information came from which reference. But you don't have to cite every single sentence, especially, you can't cite your own thoughts. If every sentence is a citation, it tells me you haven't thought much at all. You've just repeated back to me what other people thought, which is also important, but not what I want to teach you here in the program. I hope this lecture has been helpful, and don't ever hesitate to contact your peers, your professors, to look up things in your APA manual, to check with your librarian. I don't know if you know this, but Carol Watwood is our social work librarian. She would be happy to help you with referencing. She loves to do that stuff. So just, ask if you're not sure, because in the end, the main thing is that you learn how to do these skills and that you can do them well so that you are protecting others as well as yourself. I will see you in another lecture